Opera is about reviving something in many ways, simply due to the fact that we are reproducing an old repertoire again and again and again. And the question comes very easily, what the heck has this to do with us? What is this about? How can we identify? How we can create some kind of consensus, making people hope at least that there's any chance for us as human beings to develop and get further and overcome certain disastrous conditions which describes being and what we are all about. And for me, the medium opera is gigantic, of course, spectacular, and needs the highest discipline in every sense of the word. We confront, of course, the inner voice. Actually, when we hear people singing, we might focus simply on the technical part of singing, the beauty of a voice, the virtuosity of producing sound, reproducing epoch, going musically into details and so on. But at the end, of course, we confront a person who delivers something which is invisible, actually. It comes from inside, and that makes it so incredibly fantastic and fascinating and dangerous in many ways also. It's very naked. It's a very naked form of it's performing arts, of course, and it has to be recreated here and now. So opera can never be about anything else than who we are here and now, who we choose to define ourselves, how we choose to define ourselves through this confrontation with our past, with our future, and status quo. So, of course, it's a paradox to go into the 18th or 17th century and say this is actually about us, because we first, of course, have to do a lot of job and see, okay, what are the references given here actually? Are there any connections, or is this really so artificially strange, put into an atmosphere, a situation, coordinates we can simply not connect to anymore? For me, it's a question of translation. I call it how to translate something and to put it into the image of something we can recognize and identify with. For me, it's always been like, what is this for you? You have to confront yourself, and you will always be a child of your time, and by that you will also be representative for the audience you are turning to and trying to communicate with. This is the same mechanism you have as a director confronting your ensemble. They are also representatives of a society, of reality, of this here and now, of this being, which we try together to find a way to take off from. And that has to be built on trust. On some level, you have to trust reality, being able to play with the idea of reality. We are all architects of the reality. We are all artists, so to say. We are all caught in this definition of reality which creates our society, or which builds the status quo in which we put ourselves every day. But art and being a human being invites us and also expects from us that we take the responsibility of relativating everything we can think and feel. And I think this is exactly where music starts. It starts where words are not enough. We cannot continue with the definitions we live under to create the reality as architects of reality. It's an invitation to become creative yourself. As you say, that you create something that is dead in the moment it takes place, but at the same time that's the only way to make something actually come alive. You cannot keep that moment. It's gone in the moment it's there, and that makes it philosophical, makes it to a very philosophical art for me. And this aspect that you can actually not materialize opera, and you cannot deal with it like a product. It's not film. You cannot count numbers. You cannot translate the quality of operatic art and the experience of opera. You cannot count it in cents and euros. You invest on a total different level, and it's absolutely irrational, and that's why it's also in a total conflict with today's materialistic, capitalistic sense of creating something. I think what the audience want is very often what they do really not want at the end. You have to surprise them, you have to seduce them to catch themselves on a certain point where their fragility and their questions towards life and their own, the meaning of being becomes relevant, and simply not on a rationalized level, but on a very central, erotic, musical level. Audiences don't want to be bored, that's for sure, but simply thinking that entertaining them and to deliver something that is very easy to understand or to catch and to put in words afterwards, so we can all agree on what we actually saw, will not actually have an effect, and it would really bring us further on. And it was the wonderful thing about music and musical theater is that you can describe and tell very believably as how someone lies. You can really in music put in music how someone lies, but the music will never lie telling that lie. And that's a paradox in itself, creating also a very interesting aspect when it comes to the senses, the sensitive mood, the atmosphere, the sentimental quality of operatic art, the dreamlike, romantic escapism we also are confronted with, of course, in the characters very strongly. I mean, the issues, what opera mostly tries to tell, the people you meet in the operatic stories are most people who are not able to face reality, to come clear in their own life. And they become representatives of ourselves, being people longing into a different reality in art to escape, to get away. But actually, we meet ourselves in the door, you know, and it catches us. It's spooky, actually. That's very I many times told people when we're working, we are actually a congregation. We are gathering in a temple. An opera house is nothing but a church where we start asking questions towards what we believe in. And what we produce there is, of course, in many ways also the reproduction of a testament giving through the cultural history. The material we are working ourselves or our asses off is of course all the way some kind of holy Bible, yeah? And everyone thinks he has the right to define exactly the truth of this. And this is where it becomes many times complicated also to communicate across the expectations, across the given, how do you say, how to break with these expectations and create a feeling that we're actually recreating something new, that we are mirroring ourselves so strongly in the material that it becomes actually something we rewrite or recompose here and now. There's a saying in Norway connected to the new building and the very representative and fashionable architecture, how this art is represented throughout architecture and as a temple, of course, trying to mirror Norwegian identity, Norwegian nature. But a matter of fact, Norwegian seems to go on the opera, not into the opera. This has always been a fantastic way for me also to mirror the reality we are caught in as opera producers, how to make people really go into something and understand the room we create for opera is inside ourselves. Yeah, the form we give it in reality is full of fascination, of course, but it will always be also a paradox you have to confront when you produce art. I'm in a situation as a Norwegian living for 20 years now in Germany and Berlin that I feel some kind like in an artistic or a cultural exile. I escaped this country to avoid becoming caught in all my problems with Norwegian mentality and the fact that opera has always been kind of an imported product, which we have never really developed on our own terms. For me, it was also a bit problematic to see exactly this kind of huge representative, almost violent need to mark the opera house as something we can export Norwegians with or export Norway with. It is a fascinating and contradictory building, and the society in this house, being also so international, invites me in many ways also to confront myself actually with what is Norwegian, what is opera about on this base where we never really grew we never really got the continuity of a European, Central European operatic tradition. I enjoy very much still coming to Norway and be part of this project to catch up in one way with a missing identity towards this medium. At the same time also have the freedom of not being caught in a tradition, but to say we have actually every possible means now to go different directions. It's like pioneer working, and that makes me sometimes very free also in the way I dare to confront my audience in Norway, which might also actually be quite different than my way of working in Europe.